The unpredictability of the 2024 Minnesota Vikings season has yours truly, Paul Allen, genuinely excited for Sunday at the Concrete Jungle and beyond. And welcome to 9 to Noon on a TCOPC Tuesday, the 9 to Noon radio show each and every Tuesday will be at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. That is the facility home for your Minnesota Vikings. And each and every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the said squad, will be joining us here from the TCO radio studios. And the bill of fare today will be to discuss some of the unpredictability of the 2024 Minnesota Vikings and preview the Giants game, plus much, much more. And with the game at the Concrete Jungle, noon KFAN, the lid lifter this Sunday, unpredictability, new quarterback, new running back, new edge guys, a bunch of new guys at corner with plenty of experience. Andrew Van Ginkel. We've seen him. We've played against him. We've heard a lot about him. Haven't seen him don the purple in a preseason game. And heard a lot of good things from those of the analytical variety about Andrew Van Ginkel. That's part of the unpredictability. Will the kicker stay lights out? And starting Sunday against the New York Giants from MetLife Stadium to kick off season 100 in the National Football League. Who are the primary kick returners? And what is beloved J.J. McCarthy going to do on game day? Where's J.J. McCarthy going to be? Plenty of room in the Vox box if he'd like to sit there with us and maybe offer some thought. So for those craving new experiences, welcome to the 2024 Minnesota Vikings season. Now, Sam Darnold, the new quarterback, part of the unpredictability. Aaron Jones, Sam Darnold, Jonathan Grenard, Dallas Turner, Andrew Van Ginkel. Bunch of corners where when you take the four veteran most, you get 441 games of game experience from Gilmore through Fabian Moreau. Sam Darnold and pressure points. We are going to hit more on that with the scribe, Ben Gessling, at 10 when he joins us weekly from the TCO radio studios. And when the scribe stops by, we will execute our toil for a couple of segments with him. Then head coach Kevin O'Connell, weekly at 11 a.m. from the TCO studios, and that's really cool. Now, Friday at the State Fair, yours truly, mad producer by my side, before saying goodbye and getting into the Big Blue just a smidge, the addition of Brian Burns, their offensive line, I don't know if it's great, but they think it's gotten better. Saquon Barkley, balls for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's their Devin Singletary is their one back as of now. So Friday at the State Fair, before we said goodbye, I would be praising some of the upgrades of the New York Football Giants, but would end the sentence with, but Daniel Jones. Brian Burns and all these sacks and Kayvon Thibodeau had a pulse last year, but they've gotten better, but Daniel Jones. Dexter Lawrence, the game wrecker from the middle, coached by Andre Patterson, former defensive line coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Dexter, he can win games by himself. However, but Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones, and all the sacks Daniel Jones has taken during the course of his career. Now, that was unfair, given, seriously, I thought about it when I left the fair, and I'm like, but Daniel Jones, it was unfair given we or adversaries, friends or foes, absolutely could hit yours truly or us with the same approach. Diatribes ending with, but Sam Darnold. But Sam Darnold. Grenard, 12.5 sacks. Dallas Turner looks the part, traded up to get him. He's probably going to be incredibly good during the course of his career. He's currently favored to be the National Football League Defensive Rookie of the Year. Van Ginkel in the pick six from the Washington quarterback. The on and off the ball acumen and skill set of one Andrew Van Ginkel. Nice upgrades at the old edge spot for the Minnesota Vikings, but Sam Darnold. It's very fair to look at it that way. Aaron Jones, better than any running back that was on the roster last year. According to some quotes put at Ben Gessling, the scribe here at 10, Aaron Jones talking about his off-season, what's known as prehab, and what he does into practices and into games to keep the knee, the hamstring, the ankle, the problematic spots for old Showtime, to keep those where they need to be into practices, into games. Yeah. I mean, Green Bay Packer fans are downtrodden. One of their favorites left. Minnesota Vikings fans undoubtedly excited that Aaron Jones is the most identifiable running back for the team. That looks like it's going to be good. Play action off Aaron Jones, find Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. That all sounds great. But Sam Darnold, it's very fair. It's unfair of me to look at another team, even if Daniel Jones has started games more recently than Sam Darnold, and to glowingly speak about an adversary and then end up with Daniel Jones. So here comes the heat of the pressure point for Sam Darnold. Sam, the man on the fan, is he ready for the heat? Because until he proves that he's ready for the heat, it's very fair to share. I think it's very fair to share it this way. There are myriad things that can be said about the Minnesota Vikings, and until proven otherwise, likewise for the Giants with Daniel Jones, you can end sentences by saying, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. The Alabama kid, Hoover High School, go crazy, never misses. But Sam Darnold, what you going to do with that? Good morning.
Good morning. And I'm so pumped for and that's the essence of the unpredictability of this season, PA, because at this stage, you can go down the road. You mentioned Aaron Jones. You know how hot I've been on the running game talker all throughout the summer, and finally getting to see Aaron Jones in person. Excited to see what this defense looks like with Stephon Gilmore. Shaq Griffin, didn't get to see a lot of him. And throughout the preseason, can Brian Flores play more of the man defense that he did years ago with Miami?
But Sam Darnold. And it all starts and stops, and whether it's pressure points and what the burden is on his shoulders to execute Kevin O'Connell's game plan, this season ultimately comes down to, can Sam do the things that he's supposed to do and find the guys that will work their way open to assist him via the pass game. And now this is the end of the social experiment. And I'm really excited about that, because ever since Darnold came to Minnesota, it's the constant, well, this guy, he lacked weapons here, he lacked coaching there, now he's in Minnesota. That's the bright side of it. Yep. The other side of it is simply, he was a third overall pick that was given myriad opportunities to succeed in the NFL. Statistically, he's lost a lot of games, thrown a lot of picks, made a lot of mistakes, and now he's here with his fourth NFL franchise. So that's where it's just stood on that scale and balanced pretty mightily. Now we finally get the end of the social experiment, starting against the Giants, who do feel good about themselves, adding Brian Burns. They feel that their defense is better. They feel that they might have something, of course, in that top rookie, might help Daniel Jones and via Malik Neighbors. But now the social experiment finally comes to an end, and we actually get to see it. The 12 plays we saw in the preseason whets the palate, does not satiate the fan base by any stretch of the imagination. Fair.
And so the unpredictability of the 2024, we can go down the line, down the roster, all those beautiful new faces, including the 17th overall rookie selection, potentially defensive rookie of the year. All that's good and all that's fun, and we're going to spend segments 9 to noon covering it en masse. But Sam Darnold. What's up with Sam Darnold, and can he show us that all that arm talent, the smart, heady play that brought him into being a 5th overall or a top 5 pick, 3rd overall to the Giants, all of that potential is nothing if not realized, if not coming to maturity here, and it has to for this Minnesota Vikings season, which ultimately, as you put beautifully, that's the unpredictability of the 2024, which leads to our excitement here 9 to noon.
The Minnesota Vikings offense has the most talent on the team, and it's not close. It's the identity of the team led by an aggressive, offensive-minded play-calling coach. So the but Sam Darnold counters the but Daniel Jones until it doesn't, until Sam Darnold put in the absolute best position of his career on a 1-year, $10 million deal, jettisons but Sam Darnold. Nice squad, nice kicker, nice left tackle, nice running back, nice wide receiver, 18, but Sam Darnold. I mean, in his life at MetLife Stadium, he has 8 wins and 14 losses. One of those came to the Minnesota Vikings in 2018, and the most recent, at MetLife Stadium, he lost to the Giants with the Carolina Panthers in 2021. So the fans at that stadium who have watched him execute his toil there have seen 8 victories and 14 losses. And the but Sam Darnold stuff has a chance to go into the rearview mirror starting this weekend, specifically if the Minnesota Vikings start fast. And I know that's a pressure point here at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. It's something that I think has been talked about quite extensively by the head coach. In closing, just take the season opener last year, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Minnesota Vikings go 3-and-out, and there was a false start penalty on Brian O'Neill. Their second possession, they travel 61 yards, then Cousins fumbles at like the Bucs 26. Third possession offensively, and again, offense is the identity of this football team. Third possession, 3 plays, Antoine Winfield Jr. smacks Kirk Cousins. It's a strip sack. It's Tampa Bay Buccaneers ball. Faster starts, and no but Sam Darnold. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have a senior offensive assistant who is an Owatonna, Minnesota native. He's also an author. His name is Tom Moore. He's going to be 86 years of age in November, and he has a new book called The Player's Coach. He's still on the Bucs staff. We're talking somebody who not only coached Tony Dungy as a quarterback at the University of Minnesota when Tom was offensive coordinator in the mid-'70s, but he worked with from Terry Bradshaw through Tom Brady. My man has 4 Super Bowl rings and a football immortality. Tom Moore is part of the Timber Tech What's on Deck set list. What's on Deck does include Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, joining us each and every Tuesday from the TCO studios in Eagan, Minnesota. Nordo produces. Maxwell Fuller guides the great ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN. And I'm Paul Allen. Welcome to a TCO PC Tuesday. This is 9 to noon.
KFAN.
A very special guest set to join us, 9 to noon. Yours truly, Paul Allen, at the Minnesota Vikings practice facility, Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. And this segment is provided by FVP Batteries. FVP Batteries back in the mix, and reach for what works. Joining us now is Tom Moore, into his 6th season as senior offensive assistant for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's an Owatonna native and a 4-time Super Bowl champion, entering his 46th year in the National Football League, and he's also an author of a book called The Player's Coach. It's today's release day. The Player's Coach is released today. It's opening day to buy the book, and you can do so at all of the pertinent book buying spots. But first, it's a pleasure chatting with you again, Tom. It's Paul Allen, and thanks for making time up to the season opener. I know you guys are busy right now. How are you?
Well, I'm good, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
How's Baker taking hold of things down there with some legit talent around him?
Well, Baker's doing great. He's a great competitor, and he's very committed to succeeding, and has worked very hard this offseason, and has had a great camp.
Tom, this the book, The Player's Coach, From Bradshaw to Manning, Brady and Beyond. And in the book, I would imagine, because I haven't read it yet, that there are elite, never-told stories from a football immortality-like career. Ain't no doubt about that. But but I'm sure you have to have a million more in your back pocket, right? I mean, shoot, you can tell us what it was like in 75 and 76 when you were Golden Gophers football offensive coordinator and Tony Dungy was your quarterback. What was that like?
Well, that was a great experience. Tony was a great person to work with, and I worked with him an awful lot and eventually worked for him. So I coached him, coached with him, and coached for him. And Tony wrote the foreword to my book, and we've developed a very close relationship. Plus, go back to 1974, so we've been with each other for some 51 years.
And I don't know if any of these stories are in the book. You're more than welcome to share if they are. But it's like, when mutual friend Bob Hagan, the media relations mogul, when he put something like this together, I've gotten to know you and your career over the years through Bob, and back to the Steelers days. There's so many fascinating things about your career, but with the Steelers days, Tom was Lynn Swann's position coach. He was a wide receivers coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers during the second half of Lynn's career. So Tom, let me ask you this. What was Lynn truly an all-around great wide receiver, or like somebody who made many a diving electric grab for all to see in Super Bowls?
Well, he was that. He was a great receiver, had great athletic ability. Was a first-round draft pick out of University of Southern California. And on the other side, we had another great receiver, John Stallworth. Mm-hmm. And, of course, both of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. And after that, I was fortunate enough to come with the Vikings. And there we had Chris Carter and Anthony Carter. And along came Jake Reed, and one of the chapters in the book is about Jake Reed and my time with him with the Vikings and how he overcame an eye problem with a lot of hard work to become a very effective receiver. And then I went to Detroit, and we had Herman Moore and Brett Herman, and on to Indianapolis, where we had Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison. So I've been blessed with a lot of great quarterbacks, but also with a lot of great receivers.
So it's an age-old NFL cliche, but I mean, the way you just laid that out, it sets up perfectly in my estimation, where sure, the game can be about X's and O's, but it's mostly about Jimmy and Joe's. I mean, if you don't have the right players, then you're probably not going to win a lot of games, right?
Well, there's no question. It's the Jimmys and Joes. And one of the things I learned from Chuck Noll, and it was really emphasized that our job as a coach was to make the best better. And that's what we tried to do. And, of course, you do that by teaching, sound fundamentals and techniques and teach them so they can play fast.
Now, with back to your Steelers days for a second, again, it's just fascinating that throughout a four-time Super Bowl winning career, that you were the position coach for football immortality, Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, and I know there are others, like you said, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, stuff like that. But like with Lynn Swann, what was Swann and Stallworth the original Rice and Taylor? Because like Jerry Rice and John Taylor, they became synonymous as a 1 and a 1A, Rice and Taylor, but Swann and Stallworth were kind of the original Rice and Taylor, right?
Yes, they were. And John came from Alabama A&M, and when he got there, the Steelers had another great receiver by the name of Frank Lewis, but they ultimately traded Frank to Buffalo, and John took over. So then it became the John Stallworth and Lynn Swann show. And, of course, we had Terry Bradshaw as a quarterback and Franco Harris and Rocky Blyer in the backfield. and Mike Webster as the center. All those guys made the Hall of Fame. And then on defense, we had the Steel Curtain, along with Mel Blount and Jack Ham and Lambert and Joe Green. So 10 of those guys, 5 on offense, 5 on defense, are all in the Hall of Fame.
This is Tom Moore, into his 46th year coaching in the NFL. He's a senior offensive assistant with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, also an Owatonna, Minnesota native. And he has a book out that is released today. It's called The Player's Coach. And you can buy it at Amazon or other pertinent book purchasing spots. The Player's Coach, from Bradshaw to Manning and Brady and beyond. Now, with speaking of receiver duos, Coach Moore, with the Buccaneers, I mean, you guys have a really nice duo with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. How do they complement each other?
Well, they're both very similar, actually. Mike came from, in fact, he was Jason Light's first pick when he got the GM job here at Tampa Bay. He came from Texas A&M, and he's a little bit taller and rangier than Chris. Chris came from Penn State, and he was a third-round draft pick. But they're both very comparable, extremely hard workers, and the thing that runs common with all these twosomes of receivers, they're very competitive, want to be the best, but they have great respect for each other. And, of course, they want to make the most catches, but they respect each other. There's never been any jealousy, any friction. They're hard workers, and the ones they don't catch, they're pulling for the other guy.
And how important is the skill set of the running back when you have good receivers like that? It's you guys have Rashad White, then you go into the rookie Bucky Irving, and Rashad has proven to be quite talented. Back in your Steelers days, you mentioned Bradshaw can run play action off Franco Harris, which means linebackers and safeties have to pay attention to that. When you were with Indianapolis, winning the Super Bowl, you had Wayne and Harrison with Dallas Clark at tight end, play action off Edger and James, which is absolutely phenomenal. So I mean, are these receivers, they're highly skilled and very gifted, there's no doubt, but the right running back matters a lot, right?
Well, there's no question, because that allows you to run the football when you want to, but it sets up your play action pass so effectively. And the other guy that had the good fortune of working with at Detroit was a guy by the name of Barry Sanders. And of course, when he got close to the quarterback, a lot of people took notice. So he helped her play action pass when I was at Detroit.
Tom's Buccaneers open at home. It's an afternoon game against the Washington Commanders. Again, the book is called The Player's Coach. We're going to talk a little bit more about the book here in a second, Tom, but for everybody listening now, again, Tom Moore, Owatonna native, 4-time Super Bowl champion, and author of the book called The Player's Coach. What do you want listeners to know about the book? What do you want those from your heart to know about the Player's Coach, and why you like it?
Well, 2 or 3 things with it. I'm 85 years old now, and a lot of times people write books when they retire, but my goal is to never retire. And so I thought I'd better write it this time. I'd give an idea of what my life was growing up. And, of course, I was born in Owatonna, but grew up in a small town in Iowa and then moved to Rochester, Minnesota, where I spent the rest of my teenage years. And it gave me a chance to tell my life story along with including stories of just some phenomenal people. I'm talking about the athletes, the coaches I work for and with, the owners that I work for. It gives people an insight into a lot of them, and through them and through my life stories, there's a lot of lessons learned that I think that I point out, which young coaches coming in, if they read the book, they can learn from them, learn from some of the mistakes I made so that they don't make the same mistakes and take the lessons that I learned and will help them. And I got the idea from Bill Cowher. He wrote a book about 3 years ago, and I read that book, and I says, man, I wish I'd have read this book 25 years ago. I said, this book should be required reading for young coaches getting into the NFL. And I tried to pattern my book a little bit after that. And then the other thing, I've always considered, Paul, it's a privilege to coach in the NFL. And it gives me an opportunity to thank all these people that have helped me live a dream.
Well, just the term player's coach, and that's the name of Tom's book. It's out today, The Player's Coach, from Bradshaw to Manning, Brady, and beyond. Tom was on the Buccaneers staff when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, led by Tom Brady. And just the term player's coach, I mean, it's you know more about this than I'll ever know, Tom, but it's tricky because being a player's coach, can lead to, okay, I'm going to be your friend, we're going to share these secrets and everything, but I'm also your boss and your surrogate dad. It doesn't always work the way coaches want it to when they're a player's coach and they get too close to the players. What do you think of that?
Well, I think that's absolutely true. And as I say, my goal was, reinforce with Chuck Noll, make the best better. And that's what I always try to do. And I try to do it in the right way, in a positive way. Sometimes there was tough love. Way back when Tony Dungy came to Minnesota, why we had to sit down a couple of times and talk just about controlling his emotions and developing leadership and stuff. And I kind of, in fact, I referred to it in the book of if I stole the line from Nick Saban. If I'd wanted everybody to like me, I'd have sold ice cream cones. So you got to get things across, and the whole premise is make the best better.
Tom, last time we chatted, and that was when Tom earned an amazing Pro Football Hall of Fame Award of Excellence honor, which is just one of 8 million super cool things about Coach Moore. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame with the Award of Excellence, and he also has written a book. Oh, by the way, while he's still coaching in the National Football League, which is just never happens. But I forgot to ask you this last time, and it's intriguing to me. You were terrific you had a terrific run as offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. So then you get here. Mm-hmm. Why were you named assistant to the head coach for the 4 years you were here?
Well, when I came there, I was assistant to the head coach and in charge of the offense. Bob Stelker was still there for one more year. And Jerry brought me in. I called the plays, and for title purposes, that was the title. For all practical purposes, I was in charge of the offense Jerry's last 2 years. Then Denny Green came in, and of course, he brought in Jack Burns as the offensive coordinator, and he retained me and assigned me to be the receiver coach. So my last 2 years there with Denny Green, who, by the way, was very, very good to me. I was the receiver coach, and Jack Burns got let go. He made Brian Billick the offensive coordinator, and I left and went to the Detroit Lions.
Tom, why did you almost retire into the 2009 season?
Well, in the 2009 season, they had a thing with the pension fund where the teams and the players contributed to it, and some of the teams, I guess, were going to pull out. So there was some rumor that there's two situations. You can draw a lump sum, or you can take a monthly annuity. Well, by that time, I was 71 years old, and I had a good amount of money in the lump sum. So they talked about doing away with the lump sum and everybody going to the annuity. Well, that was not really in my best interest. So to get the lump sum, I had to retire for 10 weeks, and then they could sign me back. Now, that's what they told me was the rule. I don't know if it was or wasn't, but that's what I was told. So that's what I did so I could draw my lump sum.
Mm-hmm. So then you come back for the 09, and you're with the Indianapolis Colts, and good thing you did, too. I mean, granted, you don't get the money at the end of the equation, but what a fun season that was, working with Peyton Manning and just everything that went into being the offensive coordinator for that Indianapolis Colts team. That 2009 season, you lose it at the wire to New Orleans, but nevertheless, good thing you came back, right?
Well, we had a great run that year. The previous year, I think we won the last 9 games of the season. Then we lost in the playoff to San Diego in overtime. In the 09 season, we won the first 14 games. So we won 23 consecutive in-season games, which I think is still a record. And then they pulled some people, and because we had everything locked up. We had the top seed, all that stuff, home field advantage. So we ended up not playing some of our regulars, and we didn't win the last 2 games. We got in the playoffs, and we won and qualified for the Super Bowl. And we played the New Orleans Saints, and Breeze was phenomenal that year, and it was great. It was a great game, but they won, and they deserved to win that game.
How do you, if you don't mind me asking, how do you keep your mind so sharp? Is it just getting into the X's and O's and the Jimmys and Joes and constantly working your mind on a daily basis?
Well, I don't think there's a question but what that helps. I'm a big believer in genes. I'm 85 and my health is perfect, so I'm very fortunate, and I thank the Almighty for being that fortunate. My wife, she's 84 and has good health too, so between the two of us being in good health, that allows me to continue to work. And yeah, you got to keep your mind active. Your mind's a muscle, and if you don't work it, it atrophies.
Amen. Beautifully described. Last one here, Tom. Tom Moore, into his 46th year in the National Football League. He's into his 6th year as a senior offensive assistant for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he has a book called The Player's Coach, From Bradshaw to Manning, Brady, and Beyond. Last one here, Tom. Thanks for the time. What are you doing for your 86th birthday in November? What big plans do you have for 8-6, Mr. Tom Moore?
Well, I'll tell you right now, because on 11/10, which is that Sunday, we play the San Francisco 49ers, so I'll be involved in game plan meetings getting ready for the 49ers. But I've had 86 of them, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, but the chip on the shoulder motivational speech is built in. Guys, this is a 4-time Super Bowl champion. It's his 86th birthday today. I don't care if it's Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and no matter which Bosa it is, let's get out there and win this one for Tom's birthday. I mean, that kind of writes itself, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Paul. Until you're 85, you have no idea how good it feels to be able to have a job and go to work.
Amen. That's beautifully stated, and I could tell it means a lot to you. All right. Well, it's the first day of release for Tom Moore's book, The Player's Coach, From Bradshaw to Manning, Brady, and Beyond. And you can find it at all regular places y'all would be getting books. Tom, just like last time, phenomenal. Thank you very much. A lot of respect and reverence for your career and you as Tom Moore, the man. Thank you for the time. Best of luck to your Bucks this year, and we'll catch up down the road, okay?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Paul.
No problem. See you, Tom Moore. Now, that's football immortality right there. Holy cow. Wow. I mean, it's like I said in the early stages, is this book, The Player's Coach, from Bradshaw to Manning, Brady, and beyond, is, I haven't read the book. I'll get the hardcover. I'll take a peek at it for sure. They got an audio book. I'd prefer to listen to books than read, but we can discuss that later, so I'll definitely listen to it. But whatever stories we get here from Tom Moore, I mean, it's 10% or less of truly what he could share. If you think about, he one of 8 million things that I could have written down and didn't get to was Tom was in the Army for 2 years, and he coached football overseas. I'm not exactly sure where, but he went overseas and taught people to play football. And that was like what he did on the side while he was in the Army. And, he's Owatonna born, Iowa raised, was at the University of Iowa. And I'm pretty sure Hayden Fry is pretty instrumental to Tom Moore. There's another chapter for the Player's Coach too. And the days with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, that's immortality in so many different ways. Now, granted, back in the mid-'70s, there were fewer options for entertainment and distraction and things like that than there are today. But I've gone down this road before, where, because of marketing and branding and social media and things like that, players so infrequently or units on teams so infrequently get nicknames anymore. But back in the mid-'70s, if you were good, and if your defensive line was good or your defense was good or your quarterback was slithery, you had cool-ass nicknames like for the Pittsburgh Steelers, when Tom was there, he shared it, the Steel Curtain, with Mean Joe Green, Dwight Evans, L.C. Greenwood, linebacker Jack Ham behind them, Mel Blount in the secondary, just hitting the bleep out of you. The defensive line in the front seven was the Steel Curtain. The Minnesota Vikings, obviously, with the Purple People Eaters. The slithery quarterback out Oakland way, Kenny the Snake Stabler. Kenny the Snake Stabler, and whenever he would look at a camera, he'd put his index and middle finger out and like go, yes. Look at the camera and pretend like he was a snake. There were just so many personalities. They just, I don't even really know how to put it. I mean, are people afraid to be personalities like that? Is everything, let's go, let's go, let's go? It was just so much different in the formative stages, and Tom was part of that. He has so many great stories he can share.
It's crazy how respected he is in the league. I got the chance when we were at the Combine. It was 2019. He had just joined the Bucks, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it was with Mr. Hagan. Okay, Mr. Hagan knows everybody, and it's a crowd.
America's best friend.
And you know how that works at the hotel. Everything's crowded. It's shoulder to shoulder. And there's Tom. And you could see how revered he was, and he could have been shaking people's hands and telling stories the whole night. But Bob and I had the chance to chat with him for about 45 minutes or so, and it's just, he oozes history with football in general, from Iowa in the 60s all the way to where he is now. He's an amazing football mind.
That segment was courtesy of FVP Batteries. Welcome back to the Covenant. FVP Batteries and the marathon segments 9 to noon. Vikes Bites are around the corner. After that, Ben Gessling joins us at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center to chat the Vikings and maybe some on the Giants up to the Life Changer on Sunday at noon, pregame at 10. And each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m., Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, kind enough to join 9 to noon from the TCO radio studio. So we're about an hour and 15 minutes from that. He'll be followed by Dan Miller. He's into his 20th year. Happy anniversary, Dan. 20th year calling Detroit Lions games. That's the target at which to shoot in the division. So we will talk to Dan and some others this week about their respective teams in the NFC North, the old black and blue. I'm Paul Allen. You're listening to 9 to noon.
Miss stopping by our booth at the State Fair? Shop our KFAN Pro Shop now to stock up on your favorite new designs. Get them soon before they're gone. That's KFAN.com, keyword store to shop today.
Alrighty, here comes some Vikes Bites from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center. Ben Gessling, who covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune, will join us after that. And Ben is going to be with us at TCO PC each and every Tuesday. Likewise for Kevin O'Connell at 11 o'clock, an hour and 10 minutes from now. That's going to be sweet. Listen to it live at KFAN, and you can watch it back at Vikings.com. They're going to be filming it. The Friday Football Feast, the inaugural 2024 feast, is this Friday, PA in charge, at Buffalo Wild Wings Oakdale. Buffalo Wild Wings Oakdale gets all the money into the season opener at the Concrete Jungle. Chad Greenway will join us in the first hour. Gabe Henderson from Vikings.com in the second hour, and Alec Lewis from The Athletic and TheAthletic.com. He will join us in the final hour, and that should be the lineup each and every week. And they all will be on air, on site, on demand, and on fire. Vikes Bites, yasay.
Vikes Bites provided by Thousand Hills, lifetime grazed, grass-fed beef. You can go to thousandhillslifetimegrazed.com. You can get elite beef shipped to your doorstep, or you can go to your local Coburns, local co-ops, regenerative agriculture. They're the best, and it's a Clearwater, Minnesota company. Love you, Thousand Hills. I got to hit you with this on a Monday after reading a Mark Craig piece in the Star Tribune, PA, and it includes a long-form interview, it appears Mark Craig did, with former Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer. And there's a couple of bits. I mean, there's not enough time in the segment for all the bits that intrigued me. But he says this. This is Mark Craig's writing. Players weren't the only ones to feel Zimmer's sting. KFAN radio personality and Vikings play-by-play announcer Paul Allen used to co-own a racehorse with Zimmer. Zimmer bought him out after Allen said on air that Zimmer snapped during a famous sideline exchange with QB Kirk Cousins when Cousins punched Zimmer in the chest, grabbed him, and screamed, "You like that," following a last-second comeback to beat the Lions. Oh, was that the Kadarius Hodge catch and then the Dan Bailey walk-off, maybe?
Might have been.
So that was in 2021, and Zimmer says, "Hey, I pushed Kirk back pretty hard too, but I just didn't like what PA said. We're supposed to be friends. Why you got to talk about me? Unfortunately, I hold grudges. That's just how I am." Any response to how Zimmer kind of laid out that situation from 2021?
Well, the way you put it, you said there are a lot of things into which we can dive, and there could be a lot of responses and or a lot of commentary shared by me. But the only thing that I will share is what troubled me at the end of the equation most about that situation. This one involving me, secondarily involving the story. Is that the day that it happened was well after, I don't know what popped up, but it was on social media, and I've gone back and listened to it, and you and I were going back and forth laughing, just about the hilarity of what was happening. And yeah, I said, look, wow, holy cow, Zimmer snapped. And there's head of security, David Corris. He's rushing into action. You remember that day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it was complete joking and slap happy, just having fun. There was nothing egregious or mean-spirited about it.
Well, we actually went deep talking about how it was being overplayed. In the emotion and the drama of a season and all of that, there is the exchanging of the pushes, etc. But it's like that was a win. It was exhilarating. Let's move on. We never put anything nefarious or underhanded into any of it.
Well, so when I talked to Mike, he shared with me that he didn't hear it, which is a 9.8 out of 10 thing in my life or in people's lives when stuff like this happens. But he shared with me that it's a mutual friend we have, and I didn't ask him the name because I didn't want to know the name. So he wanted to tell me because of the divisive nature that was transpiring from the entire situation. He wanted to tell me who it was. And I'm like, I don't care who it was. All right, so this is ridiculous. You can listen to it for yourself and whatever, and that was that. But that upset me is that that was because there's no way would Zimmer. He's not going to listen to 9 to noon. And there was nothing over the top or even 1% with malice aforethought into that conversation, into that moment. But that's one that kind of stuck with me for a little bit and then reemerged when the story popped over the weekend that, there are, not just in my life, but in everybody's lives, there are people out there that are just looking to bring other people down for whatever the reason. They're generally speaking, their lot in life, for whatever the reason, they're feeling is substandard, and they're feeling that the world's against them, and maybe A, B, C, D, and E should not have happened to them. But just think about this: for somebody to hear something, call Zimmer, and then misrepresent what happened is 10 of 10 evil. That's 10 of 10 evil. So that got me. But then it was gone, and then it came back a little bit, and we're all good. Secondly, I just, I'm not going to pretend to be Woodward and Bernstein here, or pretend to be Mike Lupica or Scott Osler or, somebody or Sam Farmer. Sam Farmer of the LA Times, one of the most well-respected football writers in the history of the game. I'm not going to try to be any of those, even though I wrote in the newspaper business for 5 years. I'm just amazingly shocked the way that story shook out, that members of the Minnesota Vikings were not contacted for comment. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely reprehensible and ridiculous. And that's the truth, because they weren't. So that's about it.
Vikes Bites. Thank you, Thousand Hills. One last thing from that particular piece. And the reason I bring this up is because at the end, we're all trying to understand how this tenure kind of came to a train wreck-like halt.
I'm not.
Rick Spielman moves on. The head coach is fired. We know all about that. But going back to their final draft together, Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer, I found this interesting. This is according to Zimmer in the piece on Star Tribune. I walk in before the draft. Rick is watching quarterback interviews from the combine. He hadn't told me anything. Normally, he always kept me abreast of everything, and he and I were always good. And then it goes on, until they weren't. Zimmer was in pre-draft meetings, discussed the quarterback class. He just didn't like the direction the draft took, considering the state of his defense at the time. The first round, Rick tried to trade up for Justin Fields, who hasn't done anything, Zimmer says. And with 4 third-round picks, Spielman selected in order Kellen Mond, linebacker Chaz Surratt, offensive lineman Wyatt Davis, and defensive end Patrick Jones. Zimmer was there for only the first pick. When he picked Mond, I walked out of the room, Zimmer says. I left the building. I didn't even talk to him on the phone. The next morning, Rick said, "You mad at me?" I said, "Yeah. I think you took 4 backups when we had guys there I thought were starters." From that time on, it just kind of got worse between us, and I'm not saying nothing was my fault. Well, it kind of reads that way a lot, but I'm sure there were plenty of things that were my fault. People made a big deal out of me saying after that game, I think it was after the Packers game, I didn't need to see more of Mond. I saw him every day in practice. Maybe I was omniscient or something. He played 3 NFL snaps, and 2 were bad. So much negativity and bitterness in 2021, which maybe that kind of speaks to the way that we've looked at the last couple of years from a cultural change, an energy change, teams getting younger, the vibe's so much different. The black cloud of 2021 was super ugly, and Zimmer lays it out quite forthright in this piece.
2 things. Conveniently, it's not mentioned when a draft was taking place, and Eric Kendricks was drafted, and it was not Bernard Rick McKinney. And Mike Zimmer pounded his fist down so hard on the table that it almost broke, and I believe he left the room. Well, Kendricks ended up being twice the player McKinney ever was. So those stories go both ways. And that'll be about the last story that hopefully I ever share on radio involving situations like that. Because this organization has provided me unprecedented access and trust during my years of covering Minnesota Vikings football and being their play-by-play announcer. And that trust is not only given, but with all due respect, it's earned by being able to keep secrets and not being a backtalker and not craving drama and not craving conflict and not, not being like so many people have been in this game over the years where it's like, well, how am I supposed to win with that offensive line? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from people, but I never share because I respect and trust the access and the access given and the friendships that are forged, whether they're current or they're lost. There are many, many ways to go with what transpired out of that story. Some people crave drama. Some people crave conflict. Some people crave unnecessary, uneasy feelings. And that's all they know for whatever the reason. I'm not one of them. And regarding Justin Fields, well, the Cowboys play the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And don't for a second think Mike Tomlin didn't pick up on what was shared. So it'll be the guy who hasn't done anything against one of the great defensive minds in the history of the NFL. So I pray for Mike Zimmer. I always have. I pray for peace in his heart and that he finds peace in his heart and it sticks. And it sticks for the totality of his life. And that's pretty much the end of that. And Vikes Bites on KFAN.